Hello, welcome back to Gathered Glow. I am so glad that you are here with me today. If you are new here, welcome. I'm Jackie Price, and this is a space where we talk about leadership, culture, life, the things that really move us, that make us light up, that sometimes are the darkness, adversity that we go through. And I talk about this in leadership and life. And sometimes it goes beyond the buzzwords and the frameworks. And we really get down to the real stuff, the human stuff, the things that connect us all, the things that help us grow, and the areas that we usually, I think we all hold a lot of wisdom around, but sometimes we just need to take a step back and sit with. And so I'm so glad that you're all here with me today. I like to have a two-way conversation all the time, and so I want to ask you something. I want you to think about the last time that somebody left your organization, or maybe the last time you left somewhere that you worked. And I want you to think, like, how did that make you feel? How did it feel? Not the logistics, not the frustration of like I had to pack up my office and get things out, but underlying the things that go deeper than that. If you had to tell me, not just on paper, what was your last 2 weeks like? Beyond the 2 week notice, beyond the belongings in a box, how did you really feel? Because I've had a lot of conversations recently, and I've come to believe that culture is not revealed in how you welcome people, but culture is always revealed in how you say goodbye. And I think that this really matters. I think we spend a lot of time and energy, and I have in my career, and resources organization wide, pouring into the beginning, which is important. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love a good onboarding design. We design onboarding, we create welcome kits, we send welcome emails, we assign mentors, we host lunches and celebrate the first day. We decorate their desk. And I genuinely think all of that is wonderful and impactful and meaningful and totally needed. It is an amazing first impression. People remember it. They remember how they felt when they walked through the door. They remember what that first day of like nerves felt like when it was met with a wonderful lunch outing. But there's a question I cannot stop thinking about after a few stories were shared with me. Why don't we put that same intentionality into how people leave? Why don't we think just as carefully about the final conversations as we do the first one? Because from a purely human standpoint, the last interaction carries more emotional weight than the first. And so the first reaction is built on possibility, right? What is this going to be? How is this organization? What are their values like? How is my team? What is the culture? But the last interaction that they have is built on reality. By the time someone walks out the door, whether it's through a restructuring, by choice, a new opportunity, a move, a life event, no matter the reason, they have experienced your culture. They know whether leaders follow through, they know whether trust actually existed, and they know whether the values that are written on your wall are actually matched by the behavior that they see from their team and their leaders. So the ending, the lens at the end becomes the lens that they interpret the entire experience, everything that came before it, by. The saying rose colored glasses, it goes the other way too. Even if a lot of things were great, the ending tends to tint their overall experience. And so, not to name names, I know I shared like a few people have recently, through some client events, had conversations with me around their stories, and I wanted to briefly just going to share it with you because a few things resonated, which is why I really wanted to talk about this. Someone showed me the messages that they received as they submitted their 2 weeks to depart. They told me they had given what felt like their heart and soul and felt like they lost themselves in this role. That they worked overtime, they stayed later, they grinded harder, they did everything that they needed to do, plus some, and gave years and years of their life, so much so that their relationship was on the rocks. And so when they decided, hey, it's time for me to move on, I have not had any career growth here, their leader, who they felt had their back, supported them, was there for them, went completely silent until their second to last day, in which they sent a message that was not very kind, not very considerate, and almost blaming, I think, to a point, blaming them for not doing enough leading up and dismissing the fact that they had not reached out for the 2 weeks. They had received the notice, didn't say anything, and basically was saying, like, I can't believe you hadn't reached out to me, you haven't said anything, you haven't completed these things. And it left such a poor taste in this individual's mouth that they felt like their entire experience there and everything they had given felt like a sacrifice that wasn't worth making at that time. That they look back with almost some mild regret for how much they gave. And the fact that they shared it with me and they shared the company with me and the supervisor with me goes to show that the impact is lasting and word of mouth matters. They weren't bitter, they were hurt. They gave so much of their life to an organization. They worked so hard. They stepped up again and again. They poured themselves into a place. They expected to have some professionalism. I think, honestly, they were expecting gratitude. And instead, almost overnight, the entire relationship that they cared so much about changed. Conversations became shorter. People became distant. When warmth disappears, it feels like, I mean, in all relationship dynamics, it feels very hurtful. And I know we've approached this like business is business, keep emotions out of it, very rational thinking, knowledge is power. I would argue right here and now that any firm, any organization that believes that that will remain true in the next 10 years is going to have a rude awakening. Knowledge is no longer necessarily power. AI has shifted and will continue to shift the access to knowledge that anyone holds and has access to. But the way that you make someone feel, your ability to connect with people, AI has a lot of information. It does not necessarily have emotional depth and understanding of the complexities of human behavior and connection. And so warmth is important. It is a skill set that is needed in business. This cutthroat, I'm a robot, you will be left talking to robots if that is the case. The message that this individual walked away with after years of their contributions wasn't a thank you. They walked away feeling like you mattered to us when you were useful. And I've not been able to stop thinking about that. I've not been able to stop thinking about that because I wonder how many people are quietly or loudly leaving organizations carrying that message time after time after time, that they're driving home on their last day feeling like I was disposable the moment they no longer viewed me as an asset on somebody's spreadsheet. Now, I know like this is not necessarily the most feel good of conversations, but this is real. This is something that I'm hearing a lot, and I believe it's measurable. I'm a Gallup certified coach, and I know I try to keep up with a lot of the Gallup research. They found that employees who have a positive exit experience are 3 times more likely to recommend their former employer than employees who have a negative one. 3 times. Nearly 3 times more likely. I think that as the market shifts, I don't think that organizations should take this for granted. We spend so much time on employer branding, recruiting, talent attraction, and yet one poorly handled departure can undo years of goodwill. One conversation, one moment where a leader chooses defensiveness over dignity, coldness over warmth. And now, more than ever, I've seen more TikToks, more YouTube videos, and reels go viral where people are sharing their departure from their organization. That has real impact. This really matters. Not only do I feel like it's not the right thing to do for people who've given years of their life or time to service your organization, but I also think from a business standpoint, it is not wise to not put a little bit of consideration into the process of how people leave your organization. Leaders don't tend to think about this enough. I've had a lot of conversations with them, and some leaders just don't want to. And I think that people need to realize like everyone is watching. We live in a day and age where everyone is watching. Even more eyes will continue watching everyone. The people online that we're talking about, they're watching, but I think the people around you are becoming even more hyper aware of what happens and the actions taken towards others. That on Slack, in your group chats at work and teams, they're all watching and they're asking if this happened to them, what is going to happen to me? And research has consistently shown that layoffs affect not just the people who leave, they affect the people who stay deeply. Trust decreases, engagement decreases, morale decreases. And when communication is poor, when there's silence or mixed messages, impact gets worse. So I feel like people can handle difficult news. I really do. I am not a believer that you should sugarcoat things. Some things are hard conversations, and difficult conversations are called difficult for a reason. They will be. But people cannot handle confusion. Confusion and respect. And so the feeling that no one is being honest with them, or you're saying one thing, it's on the wall, it's your values, but you're not living it, or you're telling me to live it, but I'm not seeing you do it. It creates a disconnect that starts to sever the trust and communication lines within an organization and within teams. And I think those team dynamics can be more sensitive than I think people will say often, especially in hybrid worlds where a lot of conversations are had offline or virtually. You can start creating quick silos where the trust that you once had is no longer there. So there's a couple of things that like I've had these conversations, and someone else shared their story with me, and it was equally as terrible. In fact, their supervisor told them like you basically will be nothing now that you leave, like or you're leaving. And of course, they've gone on to have an amazing career and be recognized in so many ways. But that was just a terrible thing to say to someone who was their right hand for many years. And so I started thinking like, okay, so what do great leaders do? What does it actually look like when they get this right? Because I think sometimes leaders hear this and they get overwhelmed. They think, I don't want to make it worse, so I just stay out of the way, or I'm going to stay silent, or I'm very emotional, so I have nothing to say. But staying out of the way makes it worse. So there's a few things that I think a great leader does for any exit. One, I think you tell the truth, not a polished version, not the version that has been approved by six people in HR and took a week and a half to get back. The actual truth. People deserve clarity. Even when it's hard, it's almost always kinder than confusion. Next, I think that you should acknowledge contribution. Even if the relationship wasn't perfect, find something genuine to honor. It might not have been the most ideal relationship for you or team member, but there's always something that they brought that you can show some appreciation for, and not in a script. Something real, not just, hey, we liked working with you, good job. Because people remember two things when they leave: what you said and how you made them feel. And so I think it's very important to find something specific and really give some type of acknowledgement to the time that they contributed, the efforts that they contributed, even if it is ending. And then I think this one I see the next step kind of not always happen, but I think you should try to protect their dignity. And I'm not a huge fan of ego, but I think dignity is different. The person may forget the exact words of your last conversation, but they will rarely forget how they felt in that room. Did you look them in the eyes? Did you treat them like a human being? Did you have empathy for what they were going through? Understanding that maybe it wasn't their choice to leave, that it is still a difficult time, and that as another person, you can understand what they're going through. And then I think if you have the opportunity, the biggest thing that you can do is to finish the relationship the way you started it. If you rolled out the red carpet when they arrived, do not disappear at their ending. The way you say goodbye is just as much a reflection of the character as the way you said hello. So I know that there's a lot of people right now in transition, whether it's by your own choice and you're looking and you're going to have that conversation, or maybe your organization is restructuring, changing, or you might be a leader who's on really that horizon of seeing what your organization is doing and knowing that some departures are coming. Before you decide to speak directly to someone, if you're listening right now and you're in the middle of layoffs or a difficult conversation, this is for you. I know this job market feels heavy, like really heavy. I'm hearing a lot of the stories. I'm seeing it. Um, Stories that I never expected to hear in this job market. And I know that there's incredibly talented people searching right now, not finding what they deserve as quickly as they should. And I know that people are questioning themselves, questioning their value, and wondering if all of the hard work that they've contributed and all the skills that they've gained matter. And I want you to really hear me when I say this. Your employment status and your value are not the same thing. Your title and your worth are not the same thing. Sometimes organizations make decisions based on economics, based on strategy, based on leadership, based on new technology that has absolutely nothing to do with you, and sometimes they simply get it wrong. None of these things get to determine your worth ever, none of them. And I need you to know that. And I know there's some days where that might not always be felt, but you should know absolutely to your core that who you are will never be determined the value of like what you do. And so here's what I want to leave you all with today. the endings in your life, not just the professional ones, all of them, but did you get the same care and intention as you did in the beginning? And I think a lot of times we know it's a no. And if you didn't, it's never too late to close that loop and to reconsider how we end things, especially departures in organizations. Sometimes we look back and we can say, I didn't handle that well, and they mattered more than how I approached it. I think the leader who says goodbye with grace and understanding, those are the people that everyone remembers. And not just professionally, but as human beings. Culture is revealed in the endings. And you get to decide what yours says about you and your organization. As always, thank you all so much for being here today. I hope that this episode spoke to you and made you think of a leader, maybe yourself, that might need to hear it as they're navigating a transition, or a team who's been through a hard season. I hope you share this with them. And honestly, I hope you know that you mean so much. Your impact, your presence, the conversations that you have truly matter. And we'll be back again to talk next week. Until then, I hope you take good care of yourself, continue to shine your light, and we will talk soon. Bye, everyone.